Welcome back, Regenerative Renegades. Thanks for joining us. Today, we have a great guest, Finian Makepeace. I'm really curious to hear the story of how you ended up being a regenerative renegade, how you got involved in this space. Most of the time, we have people that are food or ag, one or the other. Maybe almost all the time, I would say. So I don't think that's your past, but we're going to learn. So a little background on Finian. A gifted, engaging speaker and educator in the regenerative agriculture movement. He brings a rich and vibrant voice to advancing food systems through soil health. He is a presenter, media creator, and leader in the field of regenerative agriculture and soil health. He's the Kiss the Ground co-founder, producer of the great films Kiss the Ground and Common Ground, and partner at the Ryzosphere. So, Finian, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Matt. Good to see you, and all my love to the whole fam and the whole brigade over there.
Thank you very much. That means a lot. So I want you to go back and tell us your story. Like I said, I'm so curious. Go back as far as you want, but I'd like to hear the journey on how you ended up uncovering and probably being you bringing regenerative agriculture to the masses, and in so many times for years and years, I felt like I was in an echo chamber going to conferences with us all talking about the same thing, and we weren't piercing the outer world. And you successfully did that. So take it away, Finian. Let's hear your journey.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt. It's interesting. I just wanted to start by alluding to what you just mentioned. And yeah, myself and the other co-founder, not the usual suspects to do what we've done in the space of regenerative ag. And for anyone listening out there, I think one of the coolest things about the regenerative ag movement is how welcoming, and not just welcoming, but encouraging of those folks who aren't the usual suspects to get involved. Because I think probably because of the essence of holistic thinking and understanding ecosystems, I feel like a lot of the leaders inside Regen Ag so instantly saw that folks coming in from the outside were valuable and necessary in order to reach a wider audience and bring these attention to this movement to more people and make it more accessible. So in essence, Matt, I don't know if anyone out there has seen this YouTube clip, but you can go search it later. It's basically how to start a movement. And in this video, there's a band playing at a festival and everyone's sitting on the ground. And one guy starts dancing, this kind of hippie-looking white dude's dancing, and he's doing his thing. And to him, he's emphasizing a point, which is leaders do their thing no matter what. They are the scientists, the indigenous knowledge holders, the farmers and ranchers who have learned something, uncovered something, and they're doing it. And they're doing it with all their ferocity and push. But then in that film, a young gentleman comes up and starts dancing with the old white dude with his shirt off, and the young guy starts just dancing along with him. And then a few of his friends are like, woohoo, let's go dance. And then within minutes, there's 20 or 30 of them. And then literally thousands of people are congregating now dancing. But the point of the thing is that you have to have leaders in order to start a movement. But what often gets overlooked is the essential and powerful and one of the most important parts of starting a movement is that second person. If there isn't a person who gets it, sees it, embodies it, respects it, and makes it available, it is very hard for movements to reach critical mass and that tipping point, such that the people who were left were like, we better join that party. And that's what we're seeing right now. You and I were just at Climate Week. The word of the week was regenerative agriculture at Climate Week. And 15 years ago when we started, we only dreamed of that. Hearing from the dedication and depth of some of these massive companies and middle companies and governments taking so seriously this conversation for Regen Ag. So long story short is Kiss the Ground and our essence was that second person. how do we be that? How do we evoke that? How do we, at the very core, stay connected to the source, those leaders, and portray what they're trying to say, but translate it in a way and make it available for more people? But that's kind of the gist of it. But my story goes back to, probably being I would consider myself a lifelong activist. Grew up in activism, environmentalism. I grew up homeschooled out in the country. So there's a lot of stuff that primed me.
You were homeschooled out in the country?
Homeschooled out in the country. And
what does that mean?
I mean, didn't go to school, upstate New York, Ithaca.
Upstate New York, okay.
But lots of times in the woods, just, when you're a kid, being able to have a tremendous amount of time just soaking up what nature is, how it works, composting, gardening, getting a lot of our staple foods from our gardening and stuff. So my priming on that of what it is, how it goes in nature and everything was pretty big. And then one interesting fact was in 12th grade of my high school, I was in a very small 250 kid high school from 6th to 12th graders. And my kind of AP bio class had 4 PhD students from Cornell in the class. And in that class, I was out with them testing soil. And guess what that test unveiled? This is the test that showed that oak groves from miles apart were blocking airborne viruses by doing what? Sharing signals through mycorrhizal fungi. So my level of priming was probably way bigger than your average person who was a touring musician in Hollywood, like doing music and activism. So when I heard at the age of 28, 29, heard a 4-hour lecture from a gentleman named Graham Sate, now a little rewind, the co-founder, Ryland Engelhart, had heard this guy speak in New Zealand on a panel of scientists saying, can human beings sustain themselves on planet Earth? And the first 5 said, nope, we're doomed. The last guy was like, they're right, but hey, soil, this magical thing we can help regenerate. So Ryland, friend of mine from Ithaca as well, grew up with him. I'm kind of known as his activist environmental friend, and he's like, you got to hear about this. So he convinces this guy, Graham Sate, who you might know, to stop in LA and speak to us. I bring my sound system. We set up an auditorium. Graham does a 4-hour lecture, and this is one of the encyclopedias of the regenerative ag movement, we call him. He knows everything, and he lays down human health, soil carbon, biodiversity, the whole gamut. But the thing that stood out for us the most was obviously the carbon thing at that point of like, oh my God, we have a place to put carbon. So up until that point, as an activist, environmentalist, I had seen pretty much everything out there as how do we do less harm and how do we go off the cliff slower? Yep. Up until my 28, 29, whenever that was, I really didn't think we had a proper diagnosis for the problem. It was all just like, how do we Band-Aid a little bit better?
Yeah,
but that's that sustainable conservation mentality, of very logical, of like, it's getting bad out there. How do we stop the bleeding? But when he laid this all out, it was too good to be true. I was raised pretty critical, thinking minded of like, this got to be some catch here. And so we shook that night after this 4-hour lecture. I'm like, if this is all true, we shook hands. We said, we're dedicating our lives to getting the word out, because this is the biggest thing ever when it comes to like humans actually having a chance for the world to thrive again. So lo and behold, it was true. And I jumped into the work, and we met every single week. That was the dedication. Like, we don't know what we're going to be. We don't know what we're going to do exactly. We're pretty darn sure we have to help spread the word through media or whatever. But we just met every week in Ryland's living room. And I started sitting in the garage all the time. I was touring musician, so I could take myself off the road and just sit for 6 months and study the heck out of this stuff. And
Wait a minute. You were a touring musician?
That was my profession in my 20s. So I was, doing that music stuff. So I was my own boss. I could be like, all right, I'm going to study soil till the cows come home here.
What instruments?
At that point, I was frontman singer.
Oh, okay.
Early in life was a drummer, and then became a drummer again later in life.
So did you learn that at home, homeschool too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My family did a motorhome trip around the country when I was 10. for 10 months. And that's when we all started playing guitars. My parents brought like 4 guitars on a
Oh, how
teeny
cool.
Winnebago, and we all, 6 of us drove around the country, and we all learned guitars at that point. My older brother kind of started the first band. So, music was most of my life. I thought that's what was going to always be, but
So
my wife.
So whenever you want to break into song, just go ahead and we'll play along.
Yeah, I could
or
send you
dance
some
if
stuff.
you want.
I was also a professional dancer.
Really?
Touring. I was a professional swing dancer for my teens, touring around the world, teaching swing dance and competing and all that stuff.
Wow. All kinds of lessons I want.
Little shout out to homeschooling. Not such a bad idea.
Right. Right. I learned that late in life after I raised my kids.
But what I was getting at was I forget where we were exactly, but the initial phase of it was really like deconstructing this. This is all real. Is this regenerative thing actually possible? And something else was happening as I was diving in, doing as much research as I could. I was reaching out to everybody, Matt. So it's a good thing we brought up music really quick, because in the LA region, being a professional musician and making your way is hard. It is a freaking hard job. I know farming and ranching is hard too. I grant that. But it is a competitive as heck environment. So here I am, someone who's my own agent, my own manager, and then I go and start calling these people in the soil world. I'm like, hi, can I speak with Ratan Lal, please? Expecting a secretary to book me out for a month from now, maybe, right? This is Ratan Lal, and I speak to him for like an hour. So that was my reception into this movement, which was like, yes, come on in, help us out immediately. So I give a lot of credit to the movement as I started off with who's the leaders in this and how generous with their time and encouraging for like a nobody I was. I was just literally some random guy in LA checking in with them. But there was a positive energy there that was very encouraging and welcoming, which I give a lot of credit to us, putting our whole lives into this is a big part because of who was at the center and who was giving us time of day. Ray Archuleta and these other folks just being extraordinary, Alan Savory, just welcoming in completely to be like, yes, please help do it. So that's a little bit of the history. And then we basically like, okay, we're not the farmers and scientists, we're not the indigenous knowledge holders, but we're in LA and we're good at pointing at things. And so that was really the essence of Kiss the Ground's mission, awakening people to the possibilities of regeneration. If it happened to us, it can happen to anybody else. That was kind of the premise of our starting point.
Well, and it's so true. I've experienced the same thing. I came out of, I was raised close to the land, much like you, not homeschooled, but on the land every day, and you develop an appreciation for nature and how it works and how chaotic it is, but how sensitive it is too, and how it can be changed. But then when I learned about this space, I had a similar experience. I heard a talk, my heart lit on fire. I was like, this is it. This is in some ways is familiar, but yet new. And has all kinds of potential. I can see how it solves a lot of issues and on fire. But up until that point, the same kind of thinking. It's like, well, recycle, drive less. The various checkpoints of we got to slow down this degradation. But then when you get in the space, it's so true that I was amazed. I came out of the corporate marketing, and you couldn't reach those people to save your life, and it was all very regimented and controlled, and time, no one gave time. And then get into this space and people are like, oh, you want to sit down and talk for the afternoon? I'm like, what? What?
Right. Exactly.
And so it was foreign to me as well. And then once you're in it, you do understand that we collectively need that second person, just like you talk about, that second person that comes in with fresh eyes, that can see, have a different context, but start that dance. And it's still necessary today in a big way, but there is people like you coming in that get that started. And
Hmm.
we all know how, well, we all know how lonely it is to be the first person on the dance floor.
But yeah, that's it. Without that, it's impossible. But it's cumulative. It's compounding. That's the cool thing. When there's more second people, and
Yes.
when I was training soil advocates, I was always encouraging them. I'm like, I'm talking about me as a second person, but I'm also talking about you as a second person. Like it
Hmm.
is, and if we all embrace that, this was a big lesson for our soil advocate training. We trained about 5,000 people from 30 different countries at this point. Um, was basically reminding people that they're just as important. And I think
Hmm.
that's a big thing that I learned early on in life is that you can change the world, right? And a lot of people don't really believe they can.
Hmm.
But even embracing how important a second person is versus the leaders are the only important people. There's an automatic hierarchy a lot of people in our society I think tend to give away the potential of their own power because they're not observing like it's an ecosystem. It has to function together. You have to play a part. If there's only one part that's highlighted, there will be imbalances. But like, give yourself that power, that recognition. I mean, even one of our advocates like Erin Martin, she's out there doing all of that food as medicine stuff, just
Hmm.
kicking butt. But I remember early on of just like, no, it's tag, you're it. Alan and
Hmm.
Ray tagged me, but I'm like, I gotta infuse that same energy of a tag, you're it, because the potential any of these people going through that is that it's just as important, just as big of a role to play to move this
Yes.
forward.
Yeah. And that's, I guess, people listening it's so important to know that we need you.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
don't just want you. We need you. We need you to take action in whatever way you're called. Action is so necessary. And there's hope. There's hope to taking this action,
And
solving
there's
so many issues.
another thing in it too is that ecosystem mind of it is I talked early on about not being usual suspects in this, right? Just a touring musician activist guy. Now, talking with all these ag leaders and stuff. But we've always, at Kiss the Ground, we're always encouraging people to see that their unique abilities and attributes. You're talking about you.
Mhm.
You're coming in from a different space and angle too. It's like we desperately need an ecosystem brain of people who have these skills. And I'll probably talk about in a little while with the Ryzosphere we're building is like we literally have Wall Street and bank level AI guys who, yeah, they saw the movie Kiss the Ground. They were like, oh my God, they had an aha moment. But they have skill sets that are so
Mhm.
usable for this movement to move forward. And so that's where the encouragement is not become us, it's become more of you inside of this ecosystem because gosh darn it, we need it and it's going to
Mhm.
help all of us move forward.
Mhm. Yeah, and I was just crossed my mind, the producers that raise cattle, and are ranchers, farmers, whatever. I joke quite a bit, but it is true. Most days, most times, they'd like to occupy their time talking to animals and not people. So when people come along that you recognize, like, oh, this person likes to talk to other people. This is great. We need people like that
Right.
because the unique ability of the farmer rancher is generally not getting in front of a group of people or even having a conversation one to one. It's like quietly working, doing their work. But I, I need others. I need others to talk.
And I think I would give a yes and to that, Matt, which because I've experienced it firsthand of people moving out of their own way. And some of these things are just so surprising where people's consideration of themselves as a spokesperson is sometimes true in terms of their essence. Maybe they're, extremely phobic of that. But
Hmm.
a lot of people just haven't been given their own permission to themselves or
Yeah.
given quote unquote permission from someone else who they're thinking should. But some of the silly things when I'm training advocates, about 25% of them were farmer ranchers. And one of the silliest ones was like, oh yeah, I never thought I could like speak on this stuff because I don't know how to make slide decks. And I was like, are you kidding me? The reason you're not speaking is because you don't have slides that look beautiful and you don't want to make us. I will give you 350 slides to personally use however you want, edit the heck out of them. But like, those are some things that were funny in my experience, and not slighting the folks who were kind of not putting themselves in the mix, but that sometimes that was it. And then all of a sudden, 6 months later, they're out on the speaking thing. They're talking to local officials. They're out presenting at conferences. But those are the kind of things of like, we do discount often of like, this person, I don't feel like being. What is the reason you don't actually want to be? Because your story is so, your why, your reason for doing this is so profound. And if you give people that for themselves to carry and basically empower them within that, their ability, and then help them with some coaching on public speaking. I've been shocked, Matt, in terms of like the transformation of like, I am a speaker. And you're like, yep. Obviously, there are some of those folks just never will, never want to. Totally get that. But there are a lot of folks who kind of just made that up about themselves, quite honestly.
Yeah, we're told that a lot. It's scary to speak. It's don't do it. That's for special people, not you. We're told that, and we believe it, and then it's cool. I agree. I'm going through my mind people that I've known that have risen up, and like, oh my gosh. Because it's authentic, and people recognize authentic, and if it doesn't really, it doesn't matter how polished you are. It doesn't matter. It's just the content and being authentic. Yeah.
Yeah. And people think you need to start with a TED talk or something. You're like, no. Just you can speak at an elementary school. I don't care. Just let your voice start coming out. Let those thoughts start coming through. And know that it's natural, not that it has to be a memorized, rehearsed 18-minute talk for your first.
Have you
time.
done a TED talk?
I did a couple TEDx's, but
did you?
Not an official TED yet.
TEDx. Okay, I have to look that up. I haven't watched that.
How about you? Have you done one?
No. Mm-mm.
Oh, we got to.
I can't do that. I'm telling myself I can't do that.
You're full of it. You're full of it. Yeah.
It's on the list. I have to do it. It's just for some reason.
I'd be glad to help whenever you're ready.
Thank you. I need it. Need lots of help. So you progressed through this, and can we go into a little bit on the light turned on, and you ultimately ended up making these films, producing these films. What was that like? Was it what you expected? How did that all transpire?
Great question. So early within Kiss the Ground forming, we knew we had to make media. That was kind of the biggest depth of the calling, was like, we have to make media. The first piece we made was called The Soil Story. It was an animated piece, narrated animated piece. That was most importantly a tool for the movement itself to use. So we were that collective sounding board, interviewing all these different leaders from the space to create something that was under 5 minutes, that was a comprehensive version of what we're now calling the kind of thesis of what regenerative ag can do, highlighting carbon mostly, but also talking about biodiversity, water, and these other critical elements and outcomes that happen from it. But that piece was kind of our first short form piece, and we knew we had to keep creating short form content. But early on, a kind of random coincidence was the filmmakers, Josh and Rebecca Tickell from Big Picture Ranch. The filmmakers happened to live right before Ryland, the other co-founder, moved in. They lived in the house where our office was, the garage. So their business, Big Picture Ranch's business office, was the same garage Kiss the Ground was born in. I lived a half a block down the street from that. So,
and where was that?
In Venice Beach, California.
It was in LA.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that office is where we started Kiss the Ground. And so the filmmakers would sometimes be coming back to that house to check on certain things. And we convinced them, after becoming friends, to help make this movie with us. And they're already famous documentary filmmakers around fuel stuff, like oil and gas and stuff. And so it took some time, Matt, to convince them to make a film about dirt or soil. They were like, what? But we had to go in and like do some of that same type of activism of like, come here, come into the garage. Let me show you on a whiteboard of like exudates going into feed microbes in the soil from the roots, so you can understand soil aggregates holding the carbon. Like, sometimes we assume people will know just by casually mentioning like, oh, but a lot of folks need that extra push. So I encourage anyone out there, when you're like, this is a water solution, you can't just say it's a water solution in most people's brains, or you can't just tell them it's a carbon solution or biodiversity solution. You got to sometimes paint the picture, make the graphic, draw it out on a napkin. I don't care, but like people need a little bit of a push because a lot of people nod their head for anything just to get out of a conversation, and sometimes they need that push of like, I'm gonna get you to get this, come hell or high water. And so some of those things of, being actively persuading them, but also showing them literally how it works. We're like,
well, I remember
we got to make that move.
Yeah. I remember clearly when Kiss the Ground came out with the first graphics and the little short that visually represent. I was like, oh my gosh, look at, someone has put this down into graphics, and I can understand it and others can understand it. It's like, this is awesome, because we were so devoid of it. All we really had was words.
Well, that's a fun, just threw my memory back to, it's probably like 10 o'clock at night. I'm in the garage. This is you're talking about the soil story, which has the first carbon bubbles and the human and the plant and everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was one of those moments where you're like, we have to tell the story, but I'm in the garage. It's like 10 o'clock at night. And finally it was like, what if it's bubbles? What if the bubbles can move in between different things and be shown everywhere? And that way we can cycle them all through. Mm-hmm. And that's where now everyone uses carbon bubbles to show it all out there. But it came from a garage of like, I have to say something.
I love that.
A bunch of other bad ideas came out. So just people reminding of like, we didn't just naturally do that. There was a bunch of crap that happened that was like, nope. And then the bubbles hit and it was like, oh, we can use that.
It's perfect. It's perfect. Something you can't see, really, that's happening all around us.
Amorphous, goes into different things, makes all the things that are alive. So, stuff
that was
like
a big moment. That was a big moment. Seeing that for me was a big moment.
So then the films, we started off with Josh and Rebecca to make the big documentary, Kiss the Ground. It took 8 years to make.
Oh my gosh, really?
Four different versions of narrating with Woody Harrelson. I mean, this is just and my shout out to my friend Ryland for just, there were several times this film was dead in the water because funding had run out, and, Ryland's just a perpetual, we can do this mentality. It was just like, all right, here's the next $40,000 check. Let's go. Let's start up again, so that film was made took a very long time to make because it was put on pause as soon as money ran out. It was just like, we can't go until there's money again. So it was a long time, but in the meantime, we were continuously making short form content and continuously using what we had made, continuously hitting the whole movement to allow these concepts to get out before the film came out finally in 2020.
Wow. So were the players involved for 8 years as well? Like, I'm thinking about Gabe Brown. And
I mean, Ray jokes all the time. He's like, oh, I thought this was dead. I didn't think these guys, I thought they were full of SHIT. Like, they told me it was going to come out on Netflix or something. And he's like, it's never going to happen. Because it felt like that for us sometimes of like, you get these amazing momentum swings and then it just collapses for 6 months, or it's a tough thing to get through. But I think if we hadn't finally achieved it, I think it would definitely have made a lot of people lose belief in us. Because, you're carrying such a weight of like, we got to do this. We can do this. But when it finally happens,
What were those years? Beginning and ending. What was the 8 years?
2014, we started the film, and then the film came out. Let's see. 2013, we started. Yeah, that same year we met Josh and Rebecca. So 2013 to, I guess it's 7 years total. But yeah, to 20. Yeah.
20. Okay.
So 7 years more.
That's
and
incredible.
Then the second film took way less time to make Common Ground, and now we're working on Groundswell for the trilogy, finishing that up now.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. Big work, though. So necessary and just exciting to have that for everybody in the space.
Parallel work, like The Biggest Little Farm, John and his whole team. Like, there was a moment, I don't know if this is okay to say out there, but there was a moment we were like debating on making a film together, and it was just like, these are going to be two different, they're very different, they have different reasons for being. And so, but there was a moment of like, are we going to make these films together? It's going to be one movie. But I'm so glad we didn't, because my God, that film's amazing, but it had such a different vehicle and connectivity. Our film was more macro. And so, those are
Mhm.
just some funny instances of like how the movement was moving at that point. But
So you knew them when they were producing that
yeah,
film?
we all went through the producing together at the same timetable going through. So
Wow.
yeah, but there was a moment of like, are we going to do this together before everyone really kicked it into second gear? So
So what do you see happening in that space in film? Okay, so you have groundswell, but outside of that, like, do you see others being attracted in? What do you see
yeah,
happening, or what do you think's going to happen?
I think
In
there's been a heavy dosage reminder that it's it's not ever going to be or can't be done by one thing. Even just how 10 million plus people have watched Kiss the Ground, but that's still so few people. A lot of people have heard of it, but not a lot of people watch a documentary, quite honestly. Like, it's
Mm.
hard to. I know a lot of people send me documentaries to watch. I'm like, oh, geez, I have to find an hour and a half to watch that. And of course, I watched other stupid things on Netflix where I could have watched a cool educational documentary. I'm not saying I don't
Thinking
have
about
any
the hours
time.
I
I'm
spent
just
watching Yellowstone.
right. I'm just like, I could have, but somehow this is more entertaining. But the point being is, I think through our work, one of the big impacts we've had is not taking it on as our own, of like, we are the ones who do the media. It's like
Mhm.
inspiring other people that together we can all jump into this more frequently and more consistently. So I think there's so much room for like TV shows and constantly other people making documentaries. There's just way more. Like my friend Oliver, who he made Feeding Tomorrow kind of stuff. So there's just so much stuff that has come through that I hope, upon hope, that we're encouraging more people to do it, to take these big steps or little steps of the short form content. How many people can become active contributors? Because I think we often count that more people have had the same priming we have, Matt. Like, I'm sure when you had your aha moment, if you go back in your own life, you have things that connect you to that. But a lot of
Absolutely.
people who are hearing something, the first thing they see, like a Kiss the Ground or a little clip from Kiss the Ground or whatever, might be their first priming. That's not going to
Mhm.
get them over the hump to becoming an active, committed, involved part of this movement. So if we think in the priming scheme of like how many people need priming from different things, it does mean all of us raising our voices louder, using more media content to get it out there, and not just saying like, oh, those people over there are the ones who are going to make it. We'll wait for their next one to come
Right.
out or something. So I hope that people hear that and understand that they can, whether they're directly involved in ag and ranching in some way or form, or they know someone who is, like, there's a role for anyone to step up and get the word out, especially with all the tools at our disposal to do so. If you look at even the Safe Soil movement, how many people they encourage to become contributors around the world in
Mhm.
that. And they just flew right past us in terms of numbers and how many people were reached because they were encouraging more people to participate.
Well, unfortunately, what I've seen in my experience is that priming takes different forms, and one of the real common forms is health.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And almost everybody has some incident or incidents close in family, friends in health
Yeah,
that prepares them to help look for solutions and then ultimately contribute and embrace those solutions. So it's not great that that's where it's coming from, but it's real and that's where we're at.
yeah,
And that's the one thing that can point you if you want to get past the conventional band-aids in health and get to more lasting regenerative solutions. That leads you to this space. One way or another, it leads you to this space.
that's why it's almost like the regenerative ag is like the solution that keeps giving. I mean,
Oh, for sure.
I say it's kind of hilarious when you come as an environmentalist of how siloed so many solutions were, and then as you nitpick them, they get like thinner in terms of their actual offering. But like the fact that regenerative ag at its core and at its highest, or even in the middle of its best state, it is so profoundly good on on the side of human health, where you're like, we have the climate carbon solution, we have the water solution, we have the biodiversity solution. And so when you look across the board, it's like it seems too good to be true. For folks listening out there, it's like I encourage you to sink your teeth into even just the profiles. And we all guess this stuff 10, plus years ago of like,
Right.
yeah, it's probably, but now we have all of this evidence. This keeps reiterating, yep, when this is a healthy system, when these cows are eating a diversity of healthy grasses with all of these nutrients becoming available, it shows up in the meat. Of course it does. I mean, its
Mm-hmm.
logic says it does, but now we have this substantial proof and constantly getting more and more of it. And we know all the players out there who are leading this. It's just incredible. But that's one thing that I think is allowing regenerative ag to win, is because at the core of it, it just makes so much sense. It's so logical when you break it down on any of these vantage points of water, human health, biodiversity, whatever. It just makes sense where you're like, yeah. And then, of course, the evidence just completely backs us up every year. It's just more astounding what we have
More
behind
data,
it.
more data
So,
all the time, more
and there's
evidence all the time.
whatever someone's passion is, whether you're someone who really cares about nature and that, you can be like, yeah, I care about the profile of the omega-3s in my steak, and I want to start being more healthy with the other things I'm taking from where their farms are coming from. But then even like lifestyle choices and what people remember, like something that always shocks me, Matt, is knowing the financial repercussions of having a regenerative uh, grazing operation where you're having more biomass accumulated, less feed needed, less sickness in your herds. It's such a win-win on the economic side. But hearing for these massive ranches across the country that some of the biggest reasons that these really big landholders are moving into regenerative is they want their birds back. And that to me is like another human, and it gives me chills every time I bring it up, because it's like that's a human thing where it's like someone is doing this not for the financial gain. Yes, it's going to be beneficial, but they have a deep wanting and a need for their birds to be back. They don't have bird songs anymore. And they grew up on these prairies or these places and they felt it and they hurt. They had the streams running, crystal clear water that have been dried up. So those things that bring us back to our childhoods or bring us back to our legacy of stewards on the land being possible, so many people have given up hope that it was even a glimmer of possibility. And then when they see it, they're like, again, they have the same skepticism I did. Like, if this is true, hell yeah, I'm going to try this. And that's where it's so amazing, the evidence we have now behind us of like, you can get your birds back. I was just on Rome Ranch. I know they're, slightly competitors with you guys through their business, but I'm sure we're all friends. It's like Rome Ranch. I mean, they bought a property 8 years ago. The listing of the creek wasn't on the listing because it had been dry for 45 years. Above them, all the miles of creek bone dry. 3 years in, they get a creek running year round, and it's running year round now for 5 years. They're the headwaters of a creek that everyone in the surrounding areas in central Texas thought was done forever. Yep. Like, that creek is dead and gone, never flowed for 40 years. And that's the kind of stuff, like fresh water seeping out of springs to feed a creek that runs year round in under 3 years in central Texas that was going through drought at the time. So these are the kind of things, it's like, and bird populations galore, like, people, when they see it and they go there and they experience it. That's why I'm excited about making more short form content these days. That's helping people get bite-sized things. You don't have to watch a whole documentary, but just be like, birds. Holy crap. Pardon my language. Or water. Oh my God. I can't believe this. I want people to not believe it, and I want them to second guess like their assumptions about the future. But for me, as raising kids and thinking about the future grandkids, is like, regenerative is the biggest shift in feeling like I could even have kids in the first place. Well, knowing that, like,
and what went through my mind as you were talking about that is, I think for all of us, but I'll speak for myself, you have that aha moment, it all comes together. You begin to learn of the benefits, and I'm 20 years later still learning of the benefits. Great. But there's a part of my brain that's like, all right, I got to poke holes in this, because I got to make sure that everything I'm saying is true and sustainable. That this, so you're checking yourself all the time. Like, I want to make sure, and then you just it just compiles higher. It's like, okay, but yes, this is true.
I think you're speaking of something I haven't thought about this before, Matt, but this just popped in my head of like the humbleness of not just the rancher farmer community in general, but this community in regenerative ag, the humbleness of which we approach this right now, compared to these jerks, let's call them, who are promoting carbon capture schemes that are just pointless big machines or sucking, like the confidence those people have to pitch for billions of dollars. Oh my, can you give us a little bit of that confidence? Because my God, we deserve it. Our solution is so much more prolific and touches everything, but we're more, we're more humble, and we're more like, oh yeah, we want to be really sure. Not as much as some scientists out there who are like dancing around any decision ever, but that's something I want to feed into this community of like, this is it. This is the biggest solution. Because if anyone watching, please do this today if you can. Go to Google Earth, pick anywhere on planet Earth, and 9 times out of 10, you're going to land in some form of ag country somewhere, and you're going to see clear as day how much of the land is impacted by agriculture. 99% of it is degenerative, meaning the landscape function and holding capacity, water, etc., is plummeting, going down. Regenerative ag literally changes that trend. It regenerates the landscape, it functions again, water cycles return, biomass returns, holding capacity of the land increases, carbon, etc., etc. But if we really get that view, Matt, to see how much, because I don't think most people in the world can actually conceive of how much land is touched by agriculture. If we don't have agriculture that is regenerating, we're on a free fall across the world in terms of an area the size of England being degraded so much that it can no longer sustain or continue to be in production even with chemical additives. That's the size of land that's being lost to complete degradation every year, the size of England. So we have to have regenerative agriculture to solve not just the climate, but like human ability to sustain themselves on planet Earth, like climate refugees, we call them. It's like, no, they're mostly desertification refugees of people who've been in land that's been degraded too much. We can regenerate that land. I mean, even food aid and water aid, some of the most moving stories that I get from, video clips, people sending me of like, this group of people used to walk 3 or 4 miles every day to get water. And we're on this much 50% or 70% food aid and 70% water aid. Now they have water coming out of their springs because they were doing regenerative grazing. They have more cattle, more grass, more fresh water, and we can't food aid our way out of this if it's happening all around the globe. It's like
that's
local sovereignty, local water sovereignty, security, food security. Like that is what changes if we're going to have future wars or not. Like people being able to live in a great way because they have the abundance that nature can provide. Without regeneration, you can't get there. And humans have to be involved. You can't just... another thing I just want to throw out, because I love when people get this difference, is you can't rewild the whole world, Matt, because some places like where I'm from in Ithaca, New York, you can rewild very fast because there's enough rainfall and there's enough humidity that the natural environment, even if it's heavily hurt or degraded or tilled, it will come back into a forest. But if you do the same thing in New Mexico or any of these drier regions that get less humidity and precipitation, it's in perpetual free fall into degeneration. We have to step in, use things like animals, cows, to change the conditions with their urine, their cow pies, and their hoof prints,
their disturbance,
to change how water is moving through that system to make the conditions that bring back the grass species, that make them come back. Without humans helping to do that, we are in free fall in too many areas around the world, and letting them go back to nature isn't going to solve it because there's
that's a great point.
Naturally created conditions. We have to go in and manage. Humans have to be the brains. Beavers are the other ones. They can do it in some areas, but beavers can't go everywhere. So how are we utilizing humans and animals working together? But not a lot of animals are out there being like, let me reconstruct this ecosystem to function in 5 years. Not a lot of them can, unfortunately. Beavers are cool, but humans and beavers are pretty much the main ones that can do that.
Yeah, that's just a great point. It just, I hope everyone lets that sink in, that we have to manage our way forward.
Yes.
It's not going to happen on its own.
Conditions. We will not get those old grass species back and those other species back without creating the conditions. And if we do create the conditions, the pace they come back, the compounding, Matt, once it starts, the regenerative feedback loop of compounding so that those conditions for the first seeds come and then the next ones come, that's the stuff, the trophic cascades of hope that exist here. That's the stuff that I want people to just say, we don't have to Johnny Appleseed our way out of this. Meaning like we don't have to go around and spread all those old native seed banks. They're there waiting for the conditions for us to help them get back to. And then voila, magically in shorter periods of time than we ever thought possible, these huge grasslands come back. Like Dr. Alan Williams, he's one of my favorite practitioners in this because he's always evolving and always moving on the cutting edge. But what he says is so important. It's what used to take us 15 to 20 years to accomplish, whether it's on biomass or resilience or economics or feed for our cattle, we're now doing in 3 to 4 years. That's a testament to this movement of the generosity, the sharing of knowledge. But new practitioners who are getting into this, the amount of information and knowledge they have at their fingertips with all of these amazing practitioners is so much greater than it was 15 or 20 years ago. So it's not going to take you 15 to 20 years to accomplish what Gabe or someone did. Like you can actually do this so much quicker and so much more rapidly.
I never really thought about that. That's true. When I go back 20 years and searching around for how should I do this? What am I doing wrong? And I made a lot of mistakes and learned by those mistakes and then try to learn from others' mistakes and all that. And that kind of that, and then that knowledge is built. But I just want to say, I'm so fortunate. I've seen, and what went through my mind is this CRP land that was just nothing but a gravel pit when we started. This little microcosm of maybe 20 acres. And we're like, all right, we're going to fix this. I don't know exactly how, but we're going to fix this. And you could look down at your feet and it was gravel. There was a plant every foot or so of some brome or something that was there, but that was it. And now I go there and it's a sea of native grasses that it took about 5 years. And then all of a sudden one spring they were there. Mm-hmm. And now they're going to seed and, it's like, oh, there it is. And now we can get, just this last week, we had an event out at the farm. We got caught in rain. I wish I would have taken advantage of the example that in the fields and pastures that we're grazing, we didn't have runoff with sheets of rain coming down. 5 inches in 2 days, just sheets of rain and not spread out, but there's a pop-up shower. All right, there's 2 inches. There's an inch there, and I drove around afterwards and I looked and there was no runoff. Like the grasses were not run down from the water running down the hills. It just took it up. The only place we saw runoff was off the roofs onto the driveway right where we were at with a bunch of people. But when I drove around everywhere else, it was like, oh my gosh, look, I don't see any runoff anywhere.
It's the magic of the soil sponge. And this is where, again, I'm not trying to be disparaging to people out there, but most adults don't know how springs work, Matt. They don't know why a spring flows or not. They're just like, oh, climate change made the spring stop flowing. You're like, dude, the land doesn't work. It's like concrete. The water runs off. It carries even more topsoil with it, 4 tons per acre, approximately. Yep. But if you make it a sponge, just as I was saying, I was just on Rome Ranch making a little video, and their infiltration rate can do 10 to 15 inches per hour. The average right around them is a half an inch per hour. So they could handle a 5-inch mega downpour in an hour and capture all of it, or even 10-inch. Their neighbors can handle a half an inch per hour. So everything else is running off, carrying with it topsoil and causing more degradation. These are the kind of things that when we just blanket things, just climate change is causing this. Be like, yes, climate or whatever we want to call too much CO2 in the atmosphere is exacerbating a problem. It's increasing heat indexes on its own. But if we talk about bare ground and degraded ground is far more of a problem for water in our future of how water moves, of how heat island is created by the intense temperatures of bare ground. These are things that can be regulated and changed so dramatically. Like Rome Ranch was, I believe, 80% bare ground when they started. And most of their places now are at 90+% covered. So if you think about root depth, penetration, it's just like a no-brainer of like, we can change exactly how you did. And we can have these completely dramatic results. Alejandro Carrillo, if everyone watches Common Ground, it's on Amazon. Alejandro Carrillo is in the freaking desert in Mexico, and we think it's a desert. But this is, again, like the reminder, it's not supposed to be a desert. We made that desert. And why we know that is because anywhere there's gullification, meaning where the water has cut through the land so deeply, you can see like a big ravine. Yes, the top of that soil, about 5 inches deep, looks like complete dust. Right below that, though, why is there a massive mat of carbon-rich soil, black soil?
Black, yep.
It's because grasses used to be pumping carbon out of their long roots into that. So it is a native grassland that's waiting for the conditions to come back. It is not a desert, unequivocally. I lived in California, so frustrated time and time again, people just being like, oh yeah, this is a desert. Be like, this Central Valley used to be a freaking wetland with so many birds and
Valley of Eden. Just
I mean, speaking of which, I mean the Fertile Crescent wasn't a joke. It was actually fertile. They turned it to desert, And so it's just people realizing most of the deserts, almost every desert, I argue, is human made. We made them. We can regenerate them, and it's waiting for us to do it.
I thought you were going to talk a little bit about that microclimate that they've tracked down there around that ranch because of the holding of the land. They can
for Alejandro's, yeah. Well, I mean, that's the other thing is when the soil's healthy and it's able to hold and retain water. Remember, soil aggregates, most of them are holding 20 times their weight in water. They're micro mega sponges. But when a plant is able to access that water year round because it's a moist sponge all around the roots of that plant's able to evapotranspirate, meaning put up water all the time and cool constantly. If a plant is weeping and dying and looks like it's falling over or dry, that plant is no longer putting moisture in the air through its photosynthetic process. But when you have plants putting up water vapor, they're cooling the temperature of that land. And they're also putting out in the water vapor, there's these tiny molecules that are allowing for water to form around. And so raindrops are in huge part formed by teeny little particles coming out of the plants, the aerosols there. So formation of cloud seeding, basically coming from plants, is a recent conversation, but everything from big forest and the Amazon to massive plains with grasslands, they're seeding clouds. And not only that, so that's small water cycle helping there, but cooler land allows clouds that are coming in to actually rain on it. So if you have too much radiant heat, you're pumping off your bare soil, clouds dissipate. And you watch countless videos of satellite images of clouds coming over Australia. As soon as they hit those desertified areas that are radiating mass amounts of heat, they dissipate and move away from those places. So bare ground perpetuates drought, as Alan Savory says. So when we cover our ground, so many things are happening to revive our water cycles and where it rains, how consistently, and how much moisture is available. So it seeds, and it also allows for and attracts those rain clouds to actually precipitate there.
And along the lines of managing, so when we till up ground and we create basically a desert because it doesn't have plants on it for a big part of the year, you don't have green days, 100 million acres of corn, for example, that most of it is still tilled without cover crops. You're creating a desert that's not doing that whole action that you just described. And so what do you get? You get boom or bust. It's either dry or all of a sudden really wet, but you don't have that constant regeneration of the water happening. And we create that through our management
100%.
Practices.
People can do this at home, Matt, and I encourage all my advocates out there to share it with their family and friends. Today, if you go and after you watch your Google Earth videos to see what the reality is, go to your kitchen and get some flour. Put a cup of flour on one plate, pat it down with your hand, put 2 slices of bread on the other plate, and then poke some holes in a paper cup and use it as your rainfall simulator. Pour that water in, have it trickle out of the cup with the holes in it. Do it over both of those. You're going to watch the flour act like till-degraded soil. The water hits the top of the flour. A little bit of it gets wet. The rest of it just runs off, carrying with it all of that flour. That's showing your soil runoff. You do the same thing on the bread. it's infiltrating immediately. It's absorbing and retaining, and you feel how wet and gushy that bread is. Now imagine that bread is covered with plants that are cooling the surface and protecting that so it doesn't dry out quickly. But this is the favorite part of this experiment, Matt, is once you keep filling the bread with water, on the bottom of the water, lo and behold, clear liquid comes out. What the heck is that? That's your springs coming back. That's literally a spring. And people, again, I've dealt with so many knowledgeable adults, no idea that that's how springs are formed, and they can show themselves with a piece of bread versus flour. But then you're going to take your finger and rub that little thin layer of wetness of your flour, rub it off the top of the flour, right underneath that, bone dry. How would you feel to be that plant in that flour? You'd be like, I want to be the plant that's got my roots in the bread, because that flour is bone dry right under top. So you're back to a drought. The sun comes out.
Bread is awesome because it imitates the aggregates. And it's really true. Again, I'll say, when we test soil on land that we are either leasing or buying to convert into a grassland, and we take some of that soil up, it is dust. I just want to tell everybody, it is dust. It's dirt, and you could put water on there and it's going to run off. And when it rains, that's exactly what happens. You get the ravines, you get the runoff, you get the topsoil on the edge of the field that gets stopped by whatever grass is left at the fence line that was allowed to live. And it's just so real when you look at it. And then you look at what we just experienced. And we're in clay. Clay does not absorb water very well. It's a very compact dirt. We're building topsoil, black topsoil on top of that clay, but clay itself is really tough to regenerate. And even with that clay, we're getting these big rain events that the water is still, with enough plants and just a little topsoil, you can still retain that water. You don't need 3 feet of rich collector to do it. Yeah. It's amazing what nature can do with just a little bit. It's a fun experiment. It is,
and we're all living in.
And you see the clean water. It's like Ray Archuleta's rain simulator. Yeah, and you see the clean water coming through the healthy soil. You're like, yep, there it is. And then you see the brown water that's coming through the degraded soil.
We just always have to question our assumptions of what is and why it is. Like, how often do people just see muddy water and just think like, oh, there was a rainstorm? Be like, that is so many billion tons of topsoil running off. Like, nature did not invent muddy water. Sure, when there's a landslide or something random, but like, if there was muddy water as much as there is now, there would never have ever been soil anywhere, because the rate of degradation of soil is so much greater now than soil formation. The planet Earth would never have had soil if that was nature's natural way of doing it.
That's a great point.
Period. Like, we wouldn't have what is soil? We wouldn't know, because that's not what's supposed to happen. So whenever you see muddy water, that is wrong. Something bad is happening.
Something's wrong. That's right.
That is bleeding.
Whether it's a pond or a stream or whatever.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Something's not
working. It's a red flag. All right. Well, you've been very generous with your time, Finian. I just want you to leave us with some words of hope on what you see happening, and even like what you've seen progress over the last 15 years in your involvement, like just kind of a bird's eye view of this is what I've seen happen, and where are we going? Is this picking up steam, or, what's happening?
It is. And it is. I feel like some people are kind of like, oh, I'm too late to the game. But like, no, if I was you, if I got to get in now to help in any way I could, so much easier, so much more potentiality for businesses, for entrepreneurs, for people who are in government, for people who are in existing businesses that, wanting to help their company shift their sourcing dramatically. Like, this is the time. My God, if you didn't have to, like we were just saying about being a rancher now, be like, you don't have to go through that 20-year figure it out by yourself things. There's ways to help. There's carbon markets. There's all these other things that can be like jumpstart your way into this. So get involved. Number one, I want to give a shout out to, you mentioned earlier, the Ryzosphere helping this project. Yes. Basically, I've seen this movement for 15 years, and one of the biggest stumbling blocks is the ease of market access for those who are already existing in the system to those that are coming on, who are trying to source or have a ranch or farm that are trying to get their product out there that is regenerative. This is something that at the Ryzosphere.io, we're trying to help people who are in the processing, producing, buying, or even service providers to be able to better connect. It's a matchmaking service that I mentioned, like Wall Street guys from who help with AI development all over the place with banking. They're in there building this AI system so that we can actually have the farm and ranch and food system get updated so it can actually be moving quicker, more connected, and be able to have very quick and easy access to each other and have it federated. So it's not top down owned by anybody, but this is like, finally let these people connect so they're not just, hamstrung by a middle person who has to make all those phone calls for them. Like if you got 2 million pounds of potatoes, we want to find a buyer, and you should be able to access a whole network of potato chip companies, wherever we're doing regenerative. Like that should be at your fingertips. So that's the Rhizosphere.
And it's encourage. So needed. That is so needed because
it's so exciting.
We're all on these little islands and these little pillars, separate, and it comes down to, well, do you know
all of,
No. Do you know someone that could is asked all the time, and I ask it all the time. Oh, we're looking for this. Do you know somebody? And it's very limiting. It's very limiting. Yeah. It's limiting in the market. It's limiting in you.
I get calls like this, and I'm like, I don't know. I do know some, but I'm not going to spend my weekend like finding all my contacts and sending them to you. I used to do that all the time, but my wife just started nipping me in the butt on that kind of stuff of like, you can't just volunteer and help everybody get all the things. But so that's really cool. I also think in this space, Matt, I've had kind of a flip of my head around, because there were some bad actors and some BS actors in the carbon market space who were kind of polluting the potential of it. But there are some people now who I'm seeing and starting to see the potential of leveraging funding and tools and training. Some of these carbon companies are actually helping ranchers especially get into this and have additional income streams that are beneficial to them, but also helping them access training and tools like pasture map and these ranching systems that you can have with razor grazers where you can go anywhere and do it. Like practical things that help really leverage, that were sourced from the what do ranchers need people who actually know this stuff from the ground up. So there's some of the good stuff that's happening. There's still some folks who are kind of playing the greenwash, just get the funding stuff, but there are some good guys. So I'm encouraging ranchers out there to start looking into that to see, because we need to go fast and we need to have less handicaps and less people saying, I don't have the money right now to do this. I wish I could. This is the kind of support that can kind of have people leapfrog a bit.
For sure. That additional revenue stream that's directly reflecting your effectiveness. It's awesome. And
it's substantial money.
We have to think non-traditional, because, it's really tough to either get in the cattle business or stay in the cattle business. It's really tough. There's limited revenue streams. If we can stack a couple that reflect that contribution to the environment and to health in general, that would be awesome. And we're like that close. I think we're that close.
It's burgeoning out there. So I encourage everyone out there, become a spokesperson for this. Even if you're brand new to this, the amount of ability you have to reshare content to get this conversation going in your neck of the woods and be that second person for your own community. It's always something I encourage people to do. Even myself sometimes, of like, where am I making this accessible to people? Because this truly is, Matt, there is not a solution out there that touches more real lives, period, around the world. If we talk about water security, biodiversity collapse being halted or reversed, not just carbon sequestration, but just livelihoods of people around the world. And I care deeply about suffering, and I see so much of the suffering because we are limited in resources. But if you watch the abundance unfold through regeneration, it is a game changer. It is the biggest game changer, and it solves these other problems. And we're sick. We have all this cancer. We have all these other things, and we have an ability now, clearer than we ever have, to have multiple solutions And the only losers, quite frankly, are people who've been kind of the drug dealers of our time anyway, the corporates that have kind of just leveraged sick people, sick land. They're the ones that lose, unhealthy people and healthy land. And unfortunately, it's time for them to lose because they've been taking advantage for way too long.
And just be aware that they don't want to lose.
Wait, I need to give one. Yeah, they do. They do. And they're bending a little this direction so they don't totally lose when we turn the Titanic. But one more shout out is, honestly, and this isn't just for you guys, but the fact that folks can go to the grocery store now and make a decision on their meat products that is so different. And for folks out there to realize now, if we go back 15 years ago, the dream of having products available that are regenerative, meaning their impact is as profound as what Matt and I have just discussed all through today, in terms of what you're eating, not just for your own health, the profile of things like meat, but to be able to go from consuming what we kind of call CAFO meat that is fed the CAFO things, that has the dramatic degradation from all the feed, but also from the feedlots themselves. The profound switch that is for your own health, but also your impact for your family, the consumption you have, to be able to go to the grocery store right now and pick up a pound of Thousand Hills meat or some of these other companies that are doing it.
There's plenty of brands.
That is so massive. And people making that one switch, whether it's your beef or your eggs, like these are things we eat almost 3 times a week or 4 times a week sometimes that really matter for your own health, but really, really, really matter for the long-term potential of us having water security, having our grasses and prairies come back. This is the people that are doing it, the fact that the products are now available for consumers. This is a chance to act. No matter who you are, where you are, you can use your dollars. And it's not way more expensive. It is slightly more expensive sometimes, but it's so good for what your impact is, but also for your own health, that the worth itness is, if you don't even care about the environment, just do it for your own health. You're saving somewhere else if you're doing it for your own health on your long-term health costs or wherever you look at, your vitamins, your additional oils you have to take, whatever it might be. Those things cost a lot, but like finding it in your beef, but also like water security, streams coming back, birds coming back, like biodiversity collapse being halted. Like this matters, and it's happening because people supporting the food that is doing the work. So as a consumer, we all eat. Please take those considerations seriously and pass it on. Hey, friend, this is better for you. And holy crap, watch this video of what it's doing for the world. Go to Amazon tonight and watch Kiss the Ground or Common Ground, understanding that eating Thousand Hills beef is actually doing those things, having those outcomes. That's huge. That wasn't around when I got in 15 years ago, Matt. And the fact that that's here for people, take advantage of it. Be a part of it in that way, if that's the only thing you do.
Thank you, Finian. Yes, that's Common Ground or Kiss the Ground on Amazon Prime. You can watch it. It's an easy watch. It's so enlightening.
It's fun. We got celebrities like Woody Harrelson and Aquaman and Rosario Dawson. I mean, who doesn't want to see those people anyway?
Yeah.
Now they're in awesome documentaries.
Yep. And that education is so important, and we do need to share this with other people. But we can't do it without a market. We cannot do it. We can only go so far with the current market. The market has to grow if we're going to change that land. We need the market. And just one little stat, with every pound that's consumed of true regenerative beef, we can convert the size of a school bus to regenerative practices. That's with every single pound.
Wow. I love that. I love that.
Yep. So
I'm going to keep that one. That's great.
Yeah, we did the calculation. Actually, the inspiration, I have to give credit to Michelob Ultra and their organic Michelob Ultra. They had a Super Bowl ad that talked about how much land would be converted with a 6-pack. And I thought, well, I guess I can have a steak and a beer and I'll do twice the good.
Yes. I love that. That's great.
So,
Matt, it's been a pleasure. Always rooting for you guys.
Thank
love
you.
your work.
Likewise.
And,
Likewise.
This is awesome. So everyone out there, join the movement, get involved, share. Now's the time. Use your skills. The movement needs you. Find your path.
Thank
Let's
you,
go.
Finian, for devoting your life to this. That's huge. I really appreciate it. Go get them.
You too. You too.